Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. Welcome to season 4, episode 16. An episode that we are running back, same guest, second time, and today is with Charlie. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
For everyone that tunes in, 10 rapid fire questions. So we're going to start with it. Don't think about it too long. Just what comes naturally. Number 1, what are you grateful for today?
Being in Bali.
Number 2, what is something you've been working on at the moment?
Mental discipline.
Number 3, what is your best trait?
Understanding.
Number 4, do we always have a choice in any situation? Yes or no?
Yes.
Number 5, does the hard become easier or do you just become stronger against it?
You become stronger against it.
Number 6, are you most impacted by books or podcasts?
Books.
Number 7, what is something that upsets you about other humans?
A lack of understanding. Which is ironic, isn't it? Because I just said yeah.
Well, it's you hate in others what you
The
dislike
mirror.
about, a mirror,
Mhm.
exactly. Number 8, is potential genetic, a skill, or a belief?
Belief.
Number 9, what do you feel separates winners and losers?
Mindset.
Number 10, what's a change you've made recently that's impacted your life?
Slowing down.
Is progress and growth only ever a positive experience with positive outcomes?
I think that, again, like I was just about to say, it depends on perspective because positive is dependent on the person's perspective of positive. For me, positive doesn't look like bliss all the time. Positive means challenge. Positive means potential struggle. Positive means like learning. And I don't think that it's difficult because as humans, we attribute positive feelings like sensations in the body to this is good. And I don't think that that is always the case. So no, to put it simply, I don't believe that progress or evolving is always positive or good in terms of like the feelings or sensations in your body and the circumstances, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It just is.
The concept I've been thinking of recently is that everything you do has a yin and yang or a black and white, where there's not a certain set of actions that have positive or negative. We can do something that long term has a more beneficial outcome, but it still brings with it negative repercussions or side effects. And the thing I was thinking of is the reason why you would continue to grow and continue to push, even though you have negative things that can come along, and I'll list some in a second, is because the positive outweighs the negative, even if it's 51, 49%.
Yeah.
So a thing I think of is the more I've been learning about myself and understanding my why, the harder it's been for me to connect with people when I'm with them. The harder it's been for me to connect with people when I'm not with them. When I'm with them, I can connect because I'm connecting what
You're
I'm
in
experiencing
person, yeah,
at that
totally.
time.
Yeah.
But when I'm at home on my own, I will analyze or try and make sense and understanding of why they are the way they are. And that's a fucking really hard experience to go through. And the thing I was thinking of is, if it's a hard experience to go through, why would I keep learning and diving into it? And it's because the idea is, or the reality is, it might be 51% positive and 49% negative. Super small difference, but it's still outweighed in the positivity.
I totally get what you're saying, but this is again where it comes down to the perspective thing. And you are so analytical and so logical, which is not a bad thing. I really actually like that about you because I think that it cuts a lot of the shit out when, we're influenced. There's so much outside noise. But if you can objectively be like, this is like this number here, it's like maths, right? Like there's a right and a wrong. But in life, there's not always a right and a wrong. So how do you differentiate between the 51% and the 49%?
The way I can explain the concept of what I was talking about better is gaining knowledge for a loss of innocence. And that just came to me then. So is the pursuit of gaining knowledge
Mm-hmm.
worth the loss of innocence around a topic? So if I learn about projection
Mm-hmm.
through a book, and that's the
Yeah.
book that I'm reading, I'm going to be educated around what projection is, my role in projection, another person's role in projection, and how it works.
Yeah.
But I am now also, through education, losing the innocence of not knowing what projection is and the simplicity of not understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like attachment styles. I was very
Sure.
ignorant towards attachment styles.
Okay.
And I read that through a book. So to link it in with what you're saying, I read that through a book. The pursuit of knowledge for attachment styles for me was
Mm-hmm.
something I really craved at the time. But by learning about attachment styles, I now almost analyze every relationship that I'm in, every relationship that other people are in, and every relationship just in general. And that's what I'm talking about by the 51-49. It's 51%, it's outweighed, it's good
Mm-hmm.
to have the knowledge that I know what attachment styles are and I can navigate them better. But I now can't I can't now with simplicity have relationships without breaking them down or without analyzing what attachment style is it, what's my role, what's their role.
I would then pose the question to you. I know this is kind of like steering off
It's okay.
track, but I'd pose the question to you of what's the importance of breaking things down. Just because you have the knowledge and just because you now see things as like, okay, I've lost my innocence in a sense because you're aware. It's, first of all, I don't know whether I agree with like the loss of innocence. Just because you have an understanding doesn't mean that you can't release because the way when you start to categorize and start to analyze, that's like you wanting control, right? Like you can be aware of things while still surrendering in a sense.
Yeah.
And surrender doesn't mean like, we've spoken about this in the past podcast. I know we've both spoken about it like just together, but surrender doesn't mean that you drop all of like your own beliefs. It means like I'm well established and grounded in what I believe and what I know. And the outside, while I might know that this, I might be able to analyze or categorize or label or box, it is. Like, that's what it is.
Loss of innocence through my eyes is education though.
Okay.
So the more you learn, you lose innocence in a topic. Because so this is this is the fucking worst example to give.
Mm-hmm.
But once a kid knows that Santa isn't real through education.
I hope no parents are listening to this out loud. Can you imagine?
True. But once a kid knows Santa isn't real, they're educated on that topic.
Yeah.
They've lost the innocence on thinking he is real because they know that.
That's a perfect example though as well, because it's when you said, oh, it's a silly example, it's perfect because what's the reason why Santa's exciting? Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you've lost like the belief that, okay, now Santa's not real, does that then mean that you go, Santa's not real, which means I've gotten to the conclusion magic doesn't exist? No. X doesn't equal Z all the time. Like life is not that linear. And you know yourself, like healing and growth and evolvement, nothing is linear. You can't logicalize things and comprehend things no matter how hard we try at this point in time with the human brains and bodies that we've been given. Some things are above us, above the human brain's ability to comprehend.
Are you seeing loss of innocence being tied to pessimism?
No.
Is that how it's coming across from me?
No, not necessarily. I think loss of innocence to you, it's not even, this is again, words are limiting, but it's not even necessarily like negative connotations around innocence. I get the premise behind what you're saying is like loss of innocence due to awareness. But what I'm saying is like, I understand that, yes, you lose the kind of like ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
Kind of concept, but you gain knowledge, you gain understanding. And with understanding and with knowledge, isn't there like some really cheesy quote that I love to pull out, a cheesy quote? With great knowledge comes great power, or like responsibility. Yeah, it does, but you don't have to then control everything because you know these things. Maybe it's a masculine, feminine.
This is again though. This is
very interesting.
I think a lot of today's merit's going to be masculine versus feminine.
I think we're very much polar opposites.
Yeah, which is why conversations without pushing the agenda of I'm right, you're wrong. It's great to back a point and to stand 10 toes on what you think, but also be willing to take on what someone else is saying, because
yeah, for sure.
I might be right through my perspective, but you're probably right through your perspective too. And again, perspective doesn't have a right and wrong, but a sense of
this feels authentic and real for me.
To you, yes.
But also through talking and understanding, it's so interesting that like, because you and I are what I feel like is polar opposites does not mean that what feels authentic and real to me, I can still listen and look at you and be like, that also feels real and authentic to me, like your perspective, even though they are opposing. And that's another reason why you can't just go X equals Y and Y equals Z, because it's not that simple.
The concept I've been thinking of, and this is where the question was posed from, is that those that do progressive work, self-development, self-learning, elevation, understanding, often from conversations I have think it's a nothing but positive experience. And when I mean positive, I mean result, outcome.
Sure.
So it's not to say the experience is enjoyable. I'm not saying positive in that sense. I'm saying positive in the sense that I do this work, my life gets only better. So if I learn about myself, my life only gets better. I don't agree with that. If I do this work, my life gets better, but new challenges, struggles, and tribulations arise with it too. And it's a concept I was diving into with a client this week, that the more I've learned and connected to myself, the more disconnect I feel with other humans. Because the more I understand why I am the way I am, what I do, how I go about things, the more I project that analysis onto someone else, and I can't see them for just who they are. And this client was expressing some struggles they're having at the moment, shit that used to just go over their head. They're now like, holy fuck, like that person is talking out of here, or that person is, I'm aware that that person, with the way they spoke about another person, is probably speaking about me behind my back. So back in the day, this client, when their friend would just bitch about someone, they're like, they just dislike this person. My client sat there and was like, holy fuck, the way you're speaking about this person, what are you speaking about me? So by education and leveling themselves up, they understand the world better, but it's also now brought with them this new problem, this new struggle. And it's the thing with self-development that I've been I only try and push it to those that are deeper into it, because when you're starting out, the last thing you want to hear is, hey, you'll sort through some troubles, but there's more troubles that's going to come along the way.
That's interesting. Can I stop you there? When you say starting out versus deeper into it, what dictates that?
I would say level of wisdom.
How do you measure?
Personally, it would be comparative to what I understand or know.
Okay.
So that's how I not that I am the gauge of wisdom.
Are you not the Messiah?
But with what I know, being a coach, I'm a leader.
Yeah.
The people that come to me, not that they know less than me, but I'm teaching mindsets or hand-holding or educating or assisting in learning something. So I would gauge, the pool of wisdom for what I know, but also the rate of challenge, the way they think, fuck, I never thought of that, or I wasn't aware of that. So I kind of just gauge it from my own self.
Okay. So at what point then because this is the hard thing about human experience, right? We can only see through the lens of ourselves. If the way that you measure the people who are coming to you for a service, totally fair that you're like, if I'm guiding them, you only have your experience, your wisdom, your like awareness bucket to measure from. But at what point does that then reflect back on to you as well? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, it does. I do. It reflects back onto me. So I'm not trying to state that I am the, like you joked about, the Messiah of overall wisdom. It's just the wisdom I have in an area.
Yeah, totally.
So people don't come to me to fix fucking this range of problems. They're coming to me because they want to progress self-respect, or they want to get healthier, or they want to understand themselves better, or they want to learn to show up for their future self. So I'm not saying that I gauge their wisdom in the scope of everything. It would more just be around the scope of self-development. Ties in a lot with self-respect and future self, because the more you know about yourself, the more those two areas progress.
So would an act of self-respect be allowing yourself to understand without like self-torment as well?
Yeah, but it would, and that's a skill.
Yeah.
I would say that's a skill you have to learn, because once you know, you know. So once you know, and when I say loss of ignorance, it's almost a better phrase is lack of ignorance. Like once you understand that, there's almost no going back. So now that I know, let's say I'm an avoidant attachment style, that it's probably not the best thing for me to get in a relationship with an anxious attachment style. That is now knowledge that I hold. I can't act ignorant to that. Now, that's not to say that I just follow that statement, but what I'm trying to get at is their thoughts had. So although I, in the past, I would have just...
You didn't have those thoughts. Now you have them because you have the knowledge. But then also part of understanding is there's, I think, also different levels and spectrums of understanding, because with something like attachment styles, you know that like you might be, even within a relationship, things can shift and fluctuate. You might enter a relationship as what is like, avoidant attached, and the partner you have is anxiously attached. But then throughout that relationship, you could do a switch. Throughout dynamics, you can switch. Throughout different relationships, you might be an avoidant in your past relationship and then be like, oh crap, like in this relationship, I'm actually feeling very anxious. And it depends on dynamic and what dictates dynamic communication, connection to self first, always first, and then the other person.
But see, everything you just broke down, that's what I'm saying. So in the past, it would have just been the experience of, that's just what it is. We argue. We get on. But everything you were just breaking down to make sense of, that's what I'm saying. So once you know things, I'm not saying once you know things, you put yourself through hell and it's torment. But naturally, even though that to you was like a calm experience, and I guess maybe that's where the mix-up of the question is, like calm and caring versus pessimistic and cutthroat, black and white. But even you just being able to break that down, you weren't speaking then through the lens of just seeing it for what it was. Like, oh, we get on, you know? I just want to interrupt the episode for a second to speak about a cool little giveaway that I have partnered with 10 Plus for. Now, it's not a paid ad. It's not a paid promo. It's just an unreal company thriving out of Asia. It is an electrolyte company. We've partnered to do a giveaway. So one of these electrolyte mix packs, 12 sachets. Whoever likes the episode, comments down below your favorite timestamp, will go in the draw to win one of these shipped to you. If you're within the Asia and Europe region, it'll ship directly from them. If you're from the Australian region, I am shipping you one of my personal packs. So like the episode, comment down below. If you're tuning in on Spotify, head over to YouTube. Let's get back in to the conversation.
But you can have an understanding of something, knowing, so I can still speak about it as simply as it is, in terms of, yes, I have this knowledge that there's anxiously attached, avoidant attached, anxious avoidant, secure, or like there's actually plenty of others as well, but for the sake of what we're talking about, I can go into this being like, okay, I know that dynamics may shift and it's going to be what it is. But it's going to be what it is doesn't mean that I don't have a part in it. And then it becomes about, where is the balance between presence, allowing, connection, and then knowledge. And that's like all of the things that I think are difficult to balance, because you can go so far into one and then not into the other. And I think what I'm hearing, a lot of the things that you're talking about is like, it's very logical. Mine's like it's active from your brain, not active from feeling and being.
What did you just do?
A loop.
You analyzed it though.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, I'm not saying knowing is action.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing is knowing, action is action. And that's why I want to separate that. So me knowing, to go back on what I just spoke about before, me knowing avoidant and anxious doesn't work great together, I know that. That doesn't mean that it dictates my actions or it couldn't be different, but it's something I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So like I'm saying, once you know things, you can't just see it for the experience necessarily for what it is. That's not a good or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that if you do that, it's wrong or you shouldn't analyze. Once you learn how to analyze and you have knowledge, you can't not.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's bitching about you,
Yeah.
do you not sit there and think, fuck, I wonder like what's hurting inside you? I wonder what's missing inside you. I wonder why you think these things about me. I wonder why I trigger you. Do you think that, or do you think, oh, they're just bitching about me, that's it?
I think there's a balance between the two. It depends on my state of being at the time. If I'm elevated, I'll probably be like, more victim mindset. I'll probably be like, oh, what did I do? Like, why would they say that? What's hurting inside of them? But if I'm in a good state of being and I'm just feeling level and not elevated, not stressed out, I'll probably be like, oh, that sucks. They've been bitching about me. There's obviously something they don't like about me. What do I want to do about it? Do I want to maintain that friendship? Do I want to talk to them? I don't know. And like, then it doesn't have to be a continual circle of this question and then, okay, maybe they're projecting. What are they projecting? That ticks the box of that question. Now, to answer this next one, like it doesn't have to go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah.
But before you went down that pathway, you still analyzed it. And this is what I'm saying, that I know people that would just see that scenario of, oh, they're just a bitch.
Yeah.
That's why they're bitching. But that's not why they're bitching about you.
Yeah.
There's reasons as to why. And once you learn and you gain knowledge, you understand it could be from this, from this, from this, from this.
Sure.
That's what I'm getting at, that when you learn things, the default almost is to analyze. The intensity of analysis is different person to person. And we're aware that mine might be a little bit more intense and a little bit more, okay, what's the answer? Like, what can I find compared to other individuals? But if you hold knowledge, you can't not analyze it. It's like if you see a maths problem and you know how to solve it.
I don't. Most of the time, maths is not my strong suit.
But if you did, you saw it and you knew how to solve it, you'd probably mentally just, oh, that's the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, for
But if you don't know, you don't have enough education to be able to do it, you just see it for what it is. It's like, oh, it's just a maths problem I can't solve. That's just someone bitching because they're a bitch. It's like, well, no, that's not the case. And it's interesting. So yeah, to loop it back around before you pose a question to me, I just have been diving into at the moment that problems, challenge, struggle, yin and yang are unavoidable in any area. Any pathway you go down, and I know you don't like this way of labeling, there's good and bad, or there's light and dark.
Yeah.
Any pathway, whether it's the more positive pathway, light and dark, if it's more negative pathway, light and dark,
Sure.
It's just the percentage
is different,
but it's still there. It's not as if you go on this big self-discovery journey that it's only positive results outcome. And if you are doing the wrong thing and you're self-destructing, it's only negative results outcome. You might go on a journey of self-destruction that long-term doesn't result good, but you might enjoy it along the way. It's fun to party for some people. It's fun for some people to smoke. It's fun for some people to do drugs. The outcome's not great long-term, but it's fun for some people to do that. So self-destruction isn't only a negative thing. It's probably 99% negative, but there's still 1%. So that's what I'm trying to get at, that no matter what pathway you go down, there's always a percentage of, light and dark, or yin and yang. And I'm only saying this because it's a topic at the moment with my clientele specifically, and something I've been learning. Everyone thinks once you start doing something good for yourself, only good things come from it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like that's not how life is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, last example, the gym. The gym would be seen as a positive thing to start. But for some people, it is a positive thing, maybe 55%, but then 45% of the negative, what I'm talking about, could bring body dysmorphia. So yes, it's still outweighed, and looking after your health and going to the gym is the right thing and the good thing to do. but it doesn't only just bring positive concepts overall.
But then I think that the overarching theme seems to be that with something like that, like all of the examples that we've set, is the lack of ability to be able to surrender a bit of control. Because where does body dysmorphia come from? It comes from obsession over what? Control. Right? Like, and I think that that's, an overarching theme in all of it is you can understand, you can do the work, you can go to the gym, you can read the book and listen to the podcast, and you can understand and know all of these things, but then while knowing, you can still be like, I know all this stuff, and that's so cool. I'm going to let it be.
So if you have control over something, you know you couldn't control it.
Yeah.
And then do you think like it's possible for you to choose that, I'm just going to surrender a bit of control to this and I'm not going to control it as much as I possibly can?
You mean like, is it possible to do it or not to do it?
Yeah.
Of course, everything is a possibility. Like, if you're asking, is it possible to know that you have control over something and surrender control?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course there is. In life, like you said, there's light and dark, there's good versus bad, there's surrender and control in everything.
Is that not control?
What do you mean?
It's semi-paradoxing. If you surrender control, that's you in control, is it not?
I mean, it's probably, like, it depends how you look at it. But for me, it's like, if I think of the word control, I think of constriction, I think of pressure, I think of like anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear surrender, I hear like relax and trust and openness. And,
so the perspective of emotions and feelings you tie to it, that would be individual to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Control essentially is a management of something. That's like, can we agree that that's like the fact of it? Control is you're trying to manage something.
Yeah.
So by letting go of control, you're still controlling.
Yeah, that's still like, it's
scenario.
Still a choice. It's a choice. You can either choose to like control everything, or you can choose to surrender.
So surrendering control over option A,
mm-hmm.
You're actually just controlling the overarching experience.
You're choosing, you're making a decision. I don't think it's, I think the word control means something very different to me than what it means to you. But I hear what you're saying, and I think that
I'll try and represent it in another analogy. Do you think you can be selfless?
No.
Why?
Because your mind and your body and your actions and your beliefs are all like, that is the vessel that is you.
So you're gaining something from doing something selfless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying about with the control aspect. So I feel like surrendering control, and this is like, you defined it well from your perspective. We view the word control different, but trying to take the indifferences out of that, just talk about control in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't be selfless because there's selfish returns from that, surrendering control is you just dropping control here, but gaining it up here because you're controlling how much control you have.
I hear your perspective, and I agree.
You can ask a question.
I'm wondering whether I should skip to a different question, because I feel like
doesn't have to be order. I don't know the order.
Well, it's so interesting that you asked, again, like polar opposites. But my question to you, and this was based off the conversation we had the other day, was at what point does becoming aware become more of a burden than a blessing, in your opinion?
Yeah. Great question that I've been asking
everybody. You're like, how do I navigate this?
I have been asking everybody that, and also myself. And it ties in with the Dunning-Kruger effect really nicely, that the more you know, the less you know.
Mm-hmm.
The more I know about self-development, this world of control, right language, skill sets, all of that, the more I'm feeling like I don't know. And then it's almost like when I knew a little bit, I was like, yes, this is the path you take. I know what to do.
Mhm.
This is how I'm going to teach people. This is this. The more I know, I'm like, I break it down. Fuck, does teaching someone this thing, although it's gaining them knowledge, is that the right thing to do? I say this, the meanest and nicest thing you can do for someone is teach them about ownership.
Mhm.
Because once someone learns that what happens in their life is more likely than not within their control, within their ability to dictate where they go, that they have a hand and a say in where they go moving forwards. Not to say what's happened to them is their fault,
Mhm.
but what happens to them moving
Moving
forward
forward is their
is
responsibility.
exactly
Yeah.
their responsibility. And I think about like the paradox of it's so nice to teach someone that, but what a burden to also know too. You know,
Mm.
you can go through life being overweight, unhealthy, without the knowledge of it's your responsibility to change that, blaming other people, this and this. It's an easier experience to blame people. It's hard, the fact that they're still living that negative, dark, unhealthy
Mm.
way. But yeah, it's a great question that I have been asking. I don't know, because I feel
Mm.
like recently, the more I've been learning, like I've been saying, the harder it is to connect with people, which is starting to feel more like a burden.
Mhm.
But then when I have a conversation with the right person, it doesn't feel that way. So when I first came to Bali, I felt so special, so black sheeped. And then living here, I was like, fuck, I'm actually not that special. Or the concepts I have aren't that individual.
Mm.
Or the lifestyle that
It's
I've,
beautiful, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the hard thing is, and this is like I can't say this statement without it sounding like those in Bali are better or the way I think is better.
Yeah.
But majority of the population are not like that.
Mhm.
So if I feel valid and understood and heard when I have a conversation with the right person, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
But what a fucking burden that 95% of my other conversations, I don't feel understood. I don't feel like I'm on the same wavelength. I don't feel like the communications are at par.
Yeah, I hear that, and I totally relate, like, especially when you do connect with someone deeply, then it's like, "Oh, that's so cool. I love that." And I think here in Bali, the environment and kinda like the kinds of people that Bali attracts, everyone's in transit. Everyone's like, it seems to be a running theme that people are very similar in terms of mindset, which I love, but then it absolutely does make it harder when you feel a disconnect, because then it's like, "Oh, what does this mean?" Like, you can create meaning from anything, and I think that's where, again, my interpretation of surrender can come in, because it's like, you could run yourself to the ground, exhausting the reasons, like, figuring out why and, like, the logic and trying to understand something, or you can be like, "Okay, there's a disconnect here. We can either these people back at home or this dynamic here, we can either choose to build on it. What in all of these people that I've met in Bali, or in this connection or that connection that I've found, where is that lacking here?" And then you build on it, or you just go, "Is this something that is able to be built on?" No, and I think that's why adult friendships can be really hard as well, because people are like in high school and when you're at work and things like that, you're kind of friends by default, because like proximity, convenience. But then when you start to lose touch with certain people and there's disconnect, there's maybe lapse of morals and values and things like that, it becomes really difficult to maintain certain things without that connection, unless you decide, is this worth, like, is this possible, first of all? Is it fair to expect certain things from people? Or is it something that you're like, you know what, like, no.
Yeah, so an experience of disconnect I've
Mhm.
been having is been trying to surrender the control of having others match me. I've
Mhm.
been trying to just let that go. Well, I know this, and just because I know it doesn't mean they need to.
Yeah, that's a
But
beautiful reflection.
but there's a trouble that's come with that where I've almost had to be for a lack of a better statement, the more mature one,
Mhm.
where it feels like it's a secondary conversation. It's like I am articulating what I know to make it easier for this individual to understand, because they don't either care to learn or they haven't chosen to learn it, or it's not of interest to them. But that's tiring. It's like when
Do you feel resentment?
no, not resentment, but I think because I feel so relatable to so many humans from where I came from. It's like, why can I do this? Why am I doing this and you guys aren't? Like, I was the same person as you, doing these things, not caring. I didn't even know fucking how to read a full book start to finish. I didn't know how to have a conversation. It's like, and I can do those things now. So I'm not special. They're things I've worked at and understood and learned. So it's not resentment, but it's a troublesome experience of friction where it's like, if I can do it, so can you. Why are you not? And what I was going to say before is it's like it's a weird consistency of experience, like when kids have to parent their parents. It's like a parent is supposed to parent the kid. You're supposed to view your parent as what they say is how the world works. That's how you're supposed to do this. The beliefs they have, if they're religious, you're religious. If they believe in this, you believe in this. If they're political, you're on the same party as them. It's so when a child has to parent a parent, they have that experience and that thing of like friction of like, well, why am I having to like treat my parent as a secondary person because I know more than them, and I'm having to alter how I think and how I speak and how I feel so they get it. And that's what I was saying before, of the consensus of individual. The more I learn, the
Yeah,
more I make
totally.
sense of things and get curious and realize this and then pathway this and map this experience. But then when I try and communicate it to someone, it's not
It gets stuck
understood.
in it. It's like stuck in translation.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the ownership I could have is I could become a better communicator. But the thing that's a struggle is the disconnect of like, fuck, I'm not even having a conversation with you at my full potential. Maybe that's what it is. Like, I'm actively having to think, fuck, I can't even talk about this new thing I learned because you just haven't been willing to accept or understand what I've told you, what I've learned things in the past.
Yeah. It sounds like frustration though.
Frustration of another person's potential. I
Yeah.
guess that was where it would tie in. Like I said, I'm not special. If I can do it, other people can.
So it's like you see the potential of what
Yes.
could be, and then you're like frustrated
Mhm.
that people aren't harnessing or like stepping into their potential, which actually ties into a second question.
Hold it for
that I
one
had.
sec.
Yeah.
A massive struggle. I was not a nice kid in school.
What dictates nice versus
I just wasn't a nice kid. I just probably was one of those kids that people just probably didn't enjoy being. Like, I had my best mates that I would we'd love hanging out, but just as a general thing, I maybe was known as more of a mean or a more abrasive type of kid in school. And that came from just knowing other people's potential and not seeing them not access it. It's like everyone would idolize the popular kid doing dumb things in school and think they're so funny and how great it is to be friends with them and all this stuff. I would sit here and be like, how do you guys like this fucking person that is wasting their potential? And they are individuals with potential. Like, I always held this resentment towards popular, silly kids I would fuck around in class because they were capable individuals. Like, they were capable humans, and I would see them for that. I would see them like, how does no one else analyze that this human is wasting their potential just to be funny? So even from high school, I couldn't just see someone, oh, they're funny and they're fucking around. It's like, no, you're a kid that's doing this for attention because something maybe lacks at home and you're wasting your potential. Sorry, yeah, I cut you off. You can ask the
No, I
second
love how
part.
passionate you get.
Oh, don't call me out on that.
No, I love it. I really, I do. I admire that, and I think it takes that takes connection to yourself to get that passionate. Like I said, that ties into a really, oh, gosh, we're good. The next question was going to be, where do you find the line between guiding someone and giving them the answers? Because this is what I'm seeing is like, as a mindset coach, from my own experience, as a third party outside of what's going on, you can understand, I'm sure, with people in your life, it's so easy to be like, this is the path. Like, this is going to help you, but for me, at least in terms of like what my model is and my delivery is, it's not, I don't make it my job to, I'm a guide, I'm a mindset mentor, and it's not my job to hand another human being living their human experience for the first time, and I'm living through my human experience for the first time when they are the expert in their experience, and delivering them an answer that I think is right on a silver platter and being like, this is your path, you take that. It's about asking them the questions to see if they can come to a conclusion. It might not be the same as my conclusion. It might be something totally different, but then I go, oh, actually, like, that is what works for you. More often than not, though, I do want to say, as much as this is probably an ego-driven remark, but I think that more often than not, the conclusions that people come to, that I'm trying to guide them to understand their dynamics, their patterns, break down those things more, do correlate with the path that I'm like, I think this is right. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is right.
Yeah, and I share a similar experience, and a great question I always pose to myself is, okay, so am I special with the way I thought, or is just the comparison pool so low?
What do you mean?
Like, is the comparison pool of what majority of other people would do just such a condensed shit way to go about it that you might think a little bit different to majority of the group, and that's why it ends up being the pathway walked? There were so many things that popped into my head as you were asking that, when you posed that question, and it's one of those ones that I, again, can't answer, and weirdly enough, I've been thinking of it so much at the moment, because there's so much merit in just letting someone also talk shit. You know, like I used to call out friends and family every time they'd come to me for a problem, and I learned sometimes you just have to let humans complain. Like, yes, giving a solution alters their reality, and it does essentially get them to where they want to be.
Does it though, always?
Well, it gets them to the opposing factor of what they're complaining about.
If they're receiving it, if they're open to receiving it, if it doesn't necessarily mean if I speak what my truth is here or what I think the solution is, then you get there. They have to be willing and ready to listen as well.
Yeah, but
sorry to cut you off.
No, it's adding in, it's not cutting off. But if person one is saying, oh, person two is doing this thing, and I ask, well, have you said anything to them? It's like, no, I haven't. It's like, well, just say it. So that's the solution of, like, it's solving your problem. If you say it to them.
That's the masculinity in you, though, being like, here's a problem, solution.
Yes,
you know?
That ties in so perfectly then with the responsibility of a coach. And this is where I think I hold so much resentment towards coaching, the coaching industry and coaches in general, when I see them fluffing around doing just shit because of, I guess, maybe the pathway I think towards doing what I do.
Yeah.
I had a client the other day completely complaining about something, and all I said was, I hear you. That's it. Like, it was an active response that I sat there, mapped out. I thought, okay, this is the solution I could give them. Okay, it's probably going to help them, but they've been complaining a little bit recently and they're really overwhelmed, and will they receive what I say? Well, probably not. And then they might, oh, fuck, guy, I don't want to go for him to support because sometimes he doesn't just listen. He's always giving solutions. So I was like, well, I just hear you.
Can I ask, was this client a male or female?
Male.
Interesting.
Yeah, male. But again, I think in a blanket statement, the experience in an individual standpoint is individual, but overall, male and female can both have a very similar experience.
And that's, I think, the contrast is everyone wants to be heard, right? But where there is a problem, and this is me speaking through the lens of the book that I've been reading, which is Men Are Mars and Women Are From Venus, a great book if anyone wants to read it. When women have a solution, the general theme is that we like to feel through it. We don't want solutions. Solutions might be good after we're given the opportunity to express and feel, but just hearing, I hear you, or like, that must suck, or like just validating it is like, oh, now that problem actually is fine. Like, it's all good.